Hi everybody, welcome to this video, which is not about an aircraft. This is about some updates that have happened to Axes and O's. I've been away from flight simming for a few weeks. I come back and discover there's some updates. There's one to Axes and O's itself, the software, and there's also one for the Stream Deck profile. And I thought I'd deal with the Stream Deck profile first, get that updated, and then update Axes and O's and have a look at what the differences are. I'm doing this genuinely live. I haven't installed this update and tested it yet, so because really you only get one shot at doing it, so I thought I'd be brave and do it live in front of you and then have a look and see what the differences are. So this is my Stream Deck setup, and that's what I've got an aircraft loaded in so we can see it. And this is the set of buttons here for that are available on my older version, the older profile of the Stream Deck. So I've downloaded the new one from here, which is the Axes and O's site, weebly.com, and that's where you can download the demo version and that kind of thing. But if we go here on the download section, there is the download here for the plugin for the Elgato Stream Deck, and that's a more up-to-date version than the one I've got. It never seems to get announced. Certainly not where you buy your Axes and O's software from. I buy mine from Just Flight, and that gives me an update whenever there's an update. Alert when there's an update to the actual software, AAO software itself, but not for this one here, for any of the plugins. So you do need, well, I return here and have a check every now and then and discover, oh yep, there's a new version. So I have downloaded the zip of that, saved it in a folder and extracted it, and so we've got the plugin profile itself, and there is the PDF manual for it. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a change log. It doesn't tell you what's changed, that you need to go and read through here and see if you can spot any changes. So what I thought I'd do was install it and have a look at the actual offering that comes on the Stream Deck and see if I can spot a difference there. So I've taken some screenshots of the current offering, and then I'll look at those and I'll come back later and tell you what I found in terms of differences. But let's have a look at the process for actually installing it. So firstly, here's my this is my Stream Deck, and I've just tidied up and closed those down, and there's the Lorby Axes and O's. Now it's a bit unusual. If I right click on here, nothing happens, but if I right click in the open section here, I get to see the version number, so I can see which version I've got running, and that's 9.03, and I can uninstall that and then reinstall this one here. So let's give that a go, literally live, and let's hope that this works. We'll uninstall that, and that's gone, and you can see now that that profile has stopped working. And let's have a go at putting this plugin in here. So we double click on there and we shall install that, and well, this will come back to life pretty quickly. So next thing for me to do would be, well, firstly let's just check that it's working. I've got a flight simulator up and running, and let's bring my Stream Deck in and see if it's running immediately or not. So where's my Stream Deck? There it is. And let's press on some buttons. So I will look at say the strobe light switch here. Let's have a look at that. So if I press that, it's back, it's working absolutely fine. So there's the taxi light, so the lights are working. I've tried turning the key, that's working, and I should be able to get the engine started. Oh, perhaps I need to look at the engine. Oh, the battery needs to go on. Battery on. Here we go. Bit rusty. Anyway, there we go. Things are working. So next thing to do will be to pause this bit of video and go and do a bit of investigation. Come back and tell you for any differences that I found between the two. Okay, I'll see you later, and we'll just pause this now, and we'll come back and I'll have an in-depth look. Okay, so I've had a quick analysis of what's new and what's changed on the Stream Deck profile, and I'll just talk you through what I've seen. So on the left hand side, this is the old offering, in the menus, and as you can see, absolutely no change. It's still the same type of buttons, toggle, on off event, text gauge, steam gauge, slider gauge, multi-gauge, multi-tile gauge, and one that says reset connection. So it hasn't introduced a new type of button. So if we go and have a look at the next one, I would do these in order. To be honest with you, I only use I don't use button at all. I use toggle, on off event frequently. They're the ones I use. I have done a text gauge and a steam gauge, but don't do them very often. So let's have a look at what we've got. On the left hand side, we have the old offer for a button. I said I don't use the button I don't think I've ever used it at all, actually. It's meant to emulate pressing a button on your joystick, as if you've got extra buttons for your joystick, but I've never really found a use for those. But this is a nice short menu. You can see there's a few extra bits added in. So the device ID, channel and button and all that, and button long press is exactly the same. We can define the length of the long press in milliseconds here, and you can change that. I think if you find yourself changing that frequently, that the long press is too long or something, or not long enough, and you changing that for a number of buttons, if we look in the actual README manual that comes with it, firstly it talks about changing which web port you're going to use, using this file here. So there's a bit of a long pathway to get down to it. It's quite easy to find and get into the settings there. But the other thing you can change in the settings there is the refresh rate, how often it scans the Stream Deck and sends it to you. And I found that I did have a performance problem when it was set to 100 milliseconds. So on my previous one, I did drop it to 500 milliseconds, and that details that here about the refresh rate on the refresh MS. But I think also looking here, there's this long click definition here in this files. So my guess is if you find yourself frequently changing how long the long click should be, either you want it shorter or longer, I bet you can change it here globally, changing it in that file and resaving it. And it does tell you about restarting the software, quitting the Stream Deck and actually starting it again to make sure that works. But I'm pretty sure that's going to be the action there. Okay, and all over here we've got details for it there. Okay, so bits that we can configure in here. So that's in the instructions. That's covered there. So let's get back onto the difference. So button, yeah, it's added that definition there for the long press, but it's also introduced this idea of an auto script. And again, if we bring back the written instructions, the file that comes with it, this is all the same about how you insert variables and things like that. So that's all exactly the same. And there's the long click definition. And here's the auto script. It says for each action you can call a script repeatedly, either quickly or slow. You've got the fast rate and the slow rate that they've defined. So you can call a script by holding the button down, I assume, or having it switched on. And you can call a script and run that script frequently. So I'm not quite sure what you'd use that for, why you want to run a script over and over again with something switched on. Struggling to think of an example at the moment. I can imagine in a combat game you have to hold it down so it fires missiles or bullets and hold it down and it will fly. But there's no combat element here, so not sure about that one. Yeah, I'm really struggling to think why you'd want to just run a script occasionally, but I'm sure I'll come up with something later on. But anyway, that's a feature that could be useful later on. We'll get your heads around it. The idea that you can be just running an auto script and it calls it frequently, because previously if you called a script with a button press, it fired it once and it didn't repeat the script. I've never come across an issue with that. That's not been a problem before. And if I have a script that's repeating constantly for the aircraft, I put it as an assigned auto script for that aircraft. So that doesn't really apply. I'll think about that and see if we come up with something. Unless somebody else has got an idea of what you want to use it for. I mean, there is a comment section, so you could put your ideas in there. Okay, so let's have a look at the next one. A toggle. It's pretty much the same, but we've now got a key down and a key up event, which is quite interesting. So we can toggle, and I have found one or two things actually only respond well to a key up event, but it means you can press the button, have it do one function, and as you let go of the button, do something else. You can actually assign two things if you're canny with that. And they've changed the text slightly. This send value and the event, they've called it the event value here. It's the same idea, it's just a bit of a vocabulary change there. There's a key up event. Which variable to read? So we're going to read variable A, or to check whether it's on or not, and tell it what the on value is. So that's the difference there in the key in the toggle, is we've got the key down and key up event separated out, allowing you really to do two things with the button: something that happens when you press it down, and something different that happens when you let go of the button. That could be quite useful. Okay, so we've got the on value there. Repeat is the same. We've got the long press, and again the change at the bottom here is how long the long play is, and this ability to call the auto script. So that's added to the end of that button as well there. So if auto scripts are going to become a thing, it's available on a toggle button as well. Okay, what's next? The on off. So again, pretty much the same. On value, the right event, the off value, whether it should repeat. That's not there, is it? That's here. Change the order of things slightly here. So we've got a right event for on, right event for off, exactly the same. Repeat has changed the place. Reading the variable, the on value, the long press event there, and again the definition of how long a long event is, and the auto script and that. So that seems to be added pretty much as standard at the bottom of each of the original items. So again, no major difference here. The major difference was in the toggle, where you had the key up and key down event, which isn't here. Next one is an event. Now an event on its own again has added this concept of a key down and a key up event. So that's quite nice, just to have things that either only happen when you've got the button pressed, or two separate actions. One when you press it once, you let it go. So a way of adding two actions to a button, really. And again, they've changed the vocabulary here. The send value has become event value, and this idea of the long press event and the auto script tagged on the bottom again. The on-off event. So they've got a right event on value. This is the on event on value, off event off value. So that's nicely done. And repeat is there, the long press, and again the same little bit added. It's like a template added on the end for the long play definition and auto script and that. So that's again at the bottom available for you. Next one, text gauge. It's quite a lot here. And going through, I really couldn't see any great difference to it, to this text gauge, until we get down to the button events here. So again, we've got a button event here. This is the old one, and this is the new one over here, and it's got the key up and key down event separated out, which wasn't here before. And we've got the definition of the long play, the long press, auto script there. So that's the difference. So as far as I can see, it's the actual creation of the text gauge looks the same. I can't see any difference in it, but it's about the buttons, because you can use that gauge as a button as well. So you've got a key down and a key up event. That's all very nicely done. Next one is our steam gauge. Again, this is a pretty long one. Everything here looks pretty much the same to me. I can't see any great difference. Text row offset, but I just want to shift. Yeah, that's all the same. It's not again until we get to and using the gauge as a button as well. It's again separated into key down and key up events, and the long press definition auto script at the bottom. So that seems to be fairly standard, added to the bottom of some of these gauges. Slider gauge, again, everything on the gauge side of things looks the same, but when we get to using the gauge as a button, it's key down, key up, a long press definition, and the auto script. So again, that's tagged on the bottom, so no major change there. And oh goodness me, the multi-gauge one just went on and on forever. In fact, I ran out of space to put it here, so if I click on there, we'll get rid of this one here. But just doing the comparison, it all looks absolutely identical until we get again down to the button event, the key down, the key up events, and long press and auto script. So everything else in here, if you've made gauges before, they look exactly the same. I can't see any changes in the multi-gauge, and same with the multi-tile gauge. It's just ridiculously long, but as I went through it, I couldn't see any difference until we get down to the button action on it. Again, separated that into a key down and a key up. Whereas before it was just one event, this is now two events you can allocate to it, and long press and the auto script. So that seems to be the main feature that's changed pretty much throughout all the buttons. They're all exactly the same, no different buttons added. It's just you can be a bit more creative with the buttons, particularly if you have got this key down and key up event. It means you can have something that only happens when you put your finger on the button, and then when you let go it switches off again, or you can have it so that it does, you effectively allocating two actions to I think you possibly be a bit more creative with that, but that's it. I think as far as I can see, I can't see any other great difference on it. The last one is the reset connection, and that button is completely unchanged, exactly as it was before. So that's it for the what's happened on the Stream Deck side of things. Couldn't have to give it some thought about why you want to auto script. But occasionally you may come up with a problem that could have been saved with the problem could have been solved by having a script that can be turned on and turned off again, but only on when you need it, and it repeats the script. And I have occasionally had to use a key down and key up event separately, but I've done that mostly when I've used buttons on my X-Touch rather than the Stream Deck. So maybe that'll get us out of a few little holes later on. I'm guessing that somebody came up with a need for it. I don't think a programmer would have put that amount of work into sorting something out if they couldn't have a justifiable need for it. So well done, well done. Okay, what I'll do next is I will do a video on updating the X's and O's software itself and looking through for the changes there and see what's of use to us there. There's so much in X's and O's, some of it way above my head, stuff that I can't get my head around. Developers need... I don't develop software sceneries and things like that. I just... writing stuff to control stuff that I bought off they either came standard with it or bought off of the marketplace. I'm not into designing my own airports and things like that. There are much better graphic designers out there who are toiling away doing that for me, and I'm quite happy to pay my money for them. So there's so much in Axis and O's that I don't need and will never need. So I'm just going to be looking at the bits that either I understand or have need for. Okay then. Right, so I'll see you in the next video, whenever that may be.